Okay, so your motivation. There are so many different directions and angles that we could look at with motivation. It's a very big topic, honestly, motivation. But what we will do is just focus in on the heart of it. You will find when you get into your Be World Class TV, you will find that there's a session on should, need, and want in month one, in the World Class Mindset month. That's absolutely worth tapping into, and you will find that you'll squeeze a lot of benefit out of understanding how to move from should into need if you have to, but ultimately into want. And certainly how you can start to want to do more of the things that maybe currently you're not doing. So that's one. You'll also find, if you want to dive into this in even more detail, that within the World Class Mindset Digital Masterclass, there's a huge section on motivation, and particularly how personality impacts on motivation and how we can start to motivate ourselves by understanding our personality type and matching the kind of motivational drivers that we need to that personality type. Not trying to be motivated by the things that motivate other people and other people's personalities. To give you a really quick insight into this, there's actually quite a small number of people, a small percentage of the population, who are genuinely motivated by goals, and yet lots of people rely on them. And it just doesn't kind of connect with their own personality type. So dive into those because they will give you even more benefit. But today I want to really dive into the heart of motivation. This is the central question. Lots of people think that motivation starts with an M. I mean, it does in alphabetical terms, but for me, it starts with a Y. Understanding why we do the things that we do. Why do they matter to us? What's the reason? What's the purpose behind? When we start understanding why, we go way beyond goals. For most people, goals don't work, as I mentioned. But even then, goals can be fragile. They're usually very short term. They're transitory. And for a lot of people, they just don't really have any motivational power. So if we can understand our why, our purpose, and our reason, then we start to really get a handle on motivation. I'm going to give you an example of how this works. Many years ago, I used to work, I've worked in elite sport a lot, but I also used to work with some exercise populations, particularly when I was a fairly young, fresh-faced sport exercise psychologist. And I was working in all sorts of fields. I worked with mainly women who wanted to lose some weight. And one of them said to me one day, I asked her, why do you want to lose weight? And her answer was, I just want to lose 2 stone. Now, to me, that doesn't really tell me why she wants to lose weight. So I said to her, that's really easy. We can do that. It's perfectly simple. We can do this overnight. You don't have to eat anything different. You don't have to drink anything different. You don't have to do any of that dreaded exercise stuff. Literally, we can take 2 stone off of you overnight. And her face lit up. She said, how? How do we do that? That sounds amazing. I said, we just have to amputate your leg. She said, no, that's not what I mean. I said, I thought you wanted to lose 2 stone. No, that's not it. And then she started to get into it. Then she explained why. And for her, losing 2 stone was kind of connected with wearing a little black dress. She had this black dress. There was a Christmas party coming up. She wanted to get into the dress. But even that is kind of arbitrary in a sense. Why do you want to get into the dress? Why is that meaningful? Why is that important to you? Then she started to explain that she wanted to be noticed in the little black dress by somebody in particular. Here's the thing. I mean, now we understand that motivation, it's fine, but we can also understand that it's fragile. There's a weakness in it. Here's the weakness. What if nobody notices? Or what if that person doesn't notice? What if nobody says anything? What if you've gone to all of this trouble to lose the 2 stone, eating all the rubbish that you didn't want to eat, drinking all the stuff you didn't want to drink, doing that horrible exercise stuff that you never wanted to do in the first place, and yet nobody notices? And I asked her, I said, what would happen if nobody noticed? Not because you didn't look better or not because the dress didn't look wonderful on you, but let's say, for example, that they'd had some really bad news that day. They turned up at that Christmas party, and instead of saying, wow, you look amazing, their head was full of, my parents have just been diagnosed with something nasty, or whatever it was that was happening in their life. And she started to realize that if nobody noticed, she gets to a moment where she says, what's the point then? That's where you know that your motivation's under threat, because you've lost sight of the reason. You've lost sight of the purpose. There is no reason anymore. And it's the same with people who say, I just want to see the needle on the scales move, or now the digital number on the scales move, because then I'll give myself a pat on the back. Question is, what if the number doesn't move? Because honestly, biologically, there are times in the days, the weeks, the months when your kind of physiological rhythms change, and you could be doing all the right stuff and not lose any of the weight. What would happen if you reach that point? And if somebody says, what's the point? Then you know that their motivation's hanging on a thread. It's really fragile. And for many people, their motivation's linked to something external. If your motivation's linked to money, to rewards, to recognition, it's external. If you were an athlete and it was linked to getting a medal or a trophy or whatever, and you didn't win that day, your motivation's going to take a massive hit. So therefore, it's hanging on something that's external. To get really stable, enduring motivation, we have to bring it back under our control. And it needs to be something that's driven from within us. So I talked to those people who were trying to lose weight about the difference between being noticed in a dress or losing weight and seeing the number on the scale move, and wanting to be healthy, wanting to feel better, wanting to be able to get to the top of your stairs without having a heart attack, you know, just feeling better in your clothes, having more energy, all of that sort of stuff, feeling more healthy, because none of that's driven by anything external. You can do all of those things without anybody noticing or without the scales moving. So it's really important that we bring motivation back under our control and give it a stable base. How do we do this?